I've never been violent towards a woman. I would never hit a woman, let alone shoot a woman.
I've never treated women violently. I would never shoot a woman, much less hit one. Tory Lanez is describing himself here, and it's possible that he's closer to liberation than people think. In addition to him, Lil Durk is engaged in a battle that could result in either freedom or a life in prison. Each person on this list is getting closer to that jailgate, and the instant their cases are resolved, they will all be able to completely change the rap scene. WAP, Fetty, the Brick Squad Energy, the Red Dreads, the Eye Patch, and Trap Queen all have a song so smooth that you aren't used to sing it. Fetty was the first rapper to simultaneously chart 3 debut singles in the top 11 of the Billboard Hot 100 since the Beatles. The feds touched him despite his untouchable run and untouchable bag. You also mentioned that you actually risked all of that because you were comfortable. The good term for being unable to leave the block alone is comfortability. When Willie Maxwell went outside, he still felt like a normal guy despite having Grammy nominations on his mantle. Fetty was apprehended by the federal authorities in New York on October 28, 2021, as part of a large-scale effort to transport more than 100 kilograms of cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, and crack from the West Coast into Jersey and Long Island. He was running the trafficking operation and providing funding, according to the prosecution. In exchange for the bond, he posted $500,000, but he lost it after a menacing FaceTime chat. He agreed to distribute the conspiracy in August 2022. Judge Joanna Sabet sentenced him to 6 years in prison and 5 years of paperwork on May 24, 2023. On the way to Rolling Loud, the feds apprehended him, patted him down at the metal detector, and left. He didn't even defend the case with music. To be honest, I was going through a really difficult period at the time. He had buried his daughter Lauren 4 months prior to that arrest. Inside, brother was strolling around lifeless. For me, it had already reached that stage. When it came to the music, people spoke about me more when I was arrested than when I was hitting these top charts. Inside FCI Sandstone in Minnesota, the guy changed everything. He obtained his GED, enrolled in HVAC classes, and informed his sister that he might purchase a truck and become a legitimate driver upon returning home. None of that was being heard by his sister. Fetty, the musician, was still sought after by the streets, and the First Step Act and good behavior ultimately allowed the government to give him daylight. 11 months ahead of his intended December 2026 date, Fetty left early on January 8, 2026. He is confined to his home in Philadelphia. Later this year, the paper will expire. Zoo, welcome home. The streets have been anticipating this. Little Durk. The entire drill scenario halted when knocked on Smirk. Big homie to all of Chicago's music, OTF General, and voice of the streets. In 2024, the feds arrived with documents claiming he attempted to call a hit using the same voice. Lil Durk was apprehended by the federal government in Florida on October 24, 2024, on federal murder-for-hire charges related to a 2022 conspiracy purportedly directed against Quando Rondo. Quando was not caught by the attempt. Lou Pab, his right-hander and relative, was apprehended. Pab instantly passed away. According to the feds, Durk funded the play and used his position to organize it. He faces the rest of his life if the case is successful. King Von, Durk's right hand, was assassinated outside an Atlanta bar in 2020, which is where it all began. Durk has never concealed the impact of the loss on him. Quit talking, __. Wasn't present. You stated something about Von and made a disparaging statement. Because of this, the feds claim that the 2022 hit attempt was motivated only by pain. According to Durk's crew, it's just pain talking. He entered a not guilty plea. Due to the government's designation of him as a flight risk, he was refused at least 3 times and is now sitting in the LA Metropolitan Detention Center without bond. He was placed in solitary confinement for several months before being released into the general population in January 2026. This is a complex case with hundreds of pages of discovery, co-defendants, and lyrics that the federal government is attempting to utilize as evidence. They received texts. They had collaborators. The trial dates were changed from early 2025 to January 2026, followed by May and August 2025 and 2026. Durk had been sitting for over 500 days by May 2026. They all went down together since the motions to separate his case from the other defendants were rejected. His attorney has been insisting that the evidence is being stretched thin and that songs are not confessions. The gang angle is being pushed strongly by the feds. The man has been working even from within. Deep-seated ideas vanished. He has been writing songs all the while. His people remind everyone of the Chicago schools he supported, the families he fed, and the community initiatives that are seldom discussed on blogs. He has been gaining momentum. The cooperator's reputation was severely damaged by early 2026 filings. The defense is indicating that they are going to fight this precedent for poetic evidence until the wheels come off. Dirk might see the outcome of this case before 2026 ends if the trial genuinely takes place in August as the schedule indicates. A final plea reduction, a mistrial, or a verdict. It's not just about Dirk. This entire case is about whether or not the federal government may continue to use rap bars as confessions in court. This decision served as the foundation for every drill rapper in America's Next Verse. The song that put him on was Murder on My Mind by YNW Melly. The prosecution keeps bringing up the same music. Melly has been incarcerated in Florida for almost 7 years, and the case is still open. The 2018 double homicide of Jamel Demon's Day Ones, YNW Sackchaser, real name Christopher Thomas Jr., and YNW Juvie, real name Anthony Williams, led to his arrest in 2019. Melly and YNW Bortlen allegedly sought to rig the bodies to look like a drive-by after lighting them up inside a car, according to the state. The death sentence is a possibility if the state finds him guilty. A mistrial resulted from the first trial in 2023. The jury was unable to reach a consensus. Years of paperwork and delays, arguments over digital evidence, scheduling issues, and motions piled on top of each other resulted from what was meant to be a speedy retrial. The state discreetly dismissed accusations of solicitation, gang activity, and witness tampering in January 2026. The retrial was rescheduled for January 2027. Bond consistently refused. The judge rejected his team's request for a home arrest lockdown in April 2026, citing flight danger. In Broward County, there was a 7-year pretrial period during which there was no conviction or verdict, just a calendar. He did not attend hearings. Even after maintaining his innocence throughout, he continues to play music from behind that wall. Melodies that fall between the middle finger and the sunrise. The defense has been changing tactics. More than ever, they are contesting the admissibility of the evidence, arguing for a swift trial that ought to have been allowed in any other case years ago. Ballistics, text messages, and what they refer to as Melly's confessions immediately following the body's drop are still used by the state. There is a divide in the culture. According to one perspective, a young man was ensnared in a Florida system that sought to use him as an example. On the other side, 2 families still haven't received justice for their sons. Real points were scored by both sides. At the same time, both sides are most likely correct. Melly might be released by spring 2027 if January 2027 proceeds as planned, or he might face execution. In this instance, there is no middle ground. The stakes are crucial. For the next 10 years, Florida rap will be shaken by the jury's verdict. He writes today. He bides his time. Nearly 7 years later, the most significant event of his life is still ahead of him. After 3 years and 17 stab wounds to his side, Tory Lanez continues to insist that he hasn't pulled the trigger. The public's perception of me as a monster is undoubtedly a major misperception regarding. In December 2022, Daystar Peterson was found guilty of 3 felonies related to the 2020 Hollywood Hills shooting in which Megan Thee Stallion was shot in the foot. Illegal possession in a car, assault with a semi-automatic, and careless discharge. The judge sentenced him to 10 years in August 2023. He has been a bidder at California Men's Colony for 3 years. I believe that the outcome would have been significantly different if I had taken the stand. He claims that the largest error of the entire case was his failure to testify. His legal staff has been swinging from every angle. In February 2026, his attorneys filed with the California Supreme Court, citing newly uncovered evidence, including hundreds of pages of medical documents they believe were hidden, after the appeal was refused in November 2025. The surgeon's testimony was deemed by the court to be sufficient evidence of Megan's serious physical harm. And that opportunity was not given to us. Alternatively, since it does appear suspicious, we might have asked the doctors different questions when they were on the stand to impeach them. This type of appeal is nearly impossible to win, according to legal scholars. It's been a war inside. The entire internet was taken aback by his response when they asked him what he would say to Megan today, despite the fact that he had been severely stabbed and nearly lost his musical life. Additionally, his team submitted applications to Governor Gavin Newsom, who conducts these evaluations twice a year, for a pardon or sentence commute. Eligibility for parole begins in 2029, and the complete bid period ends in 2033. Tory needs clemency or an appeal to the Supreme Court in order to return home early. Both are a stretch, but long shots are beginning to feel like his lane after he survived 17 stab wounds. Shiesty, Pooh. In less than 90 days, the wave returned and crashed. Memphis has never seen a comeback flop so quickly. In April 2022, Lontrell Williams Jr. entered a plea to 1 count of conspiracy to carry guns in furtherance of a crime of violence related to the 2020 Miami hotel shooting in which a man was struck during an attempted robbery. Judge K. Michael Moore sentenced him to 63 months and 3 years in prison. According to Wallow from $1 Million Worth of Game, he made an effort to alert Pooh before his way of life caught up with him. The gears were already churning when he attempted to whisper the game. Pooh left early on October 7, 2025, 6 months ahead of his scheduled departure date of April 2026, due to good behavior. The streets devoured that joint when he was placed under house confinement and dropped FDO in December. Memphis had returned. 1017 was in motion once more. It appeared as though the wave would soon surpass its initial size. Then January 2026 arrived, and everything was different. According to the feds, Pooh Shiesty organized a violent move in Dallas around January 10, 2026. They say that under the pretense of a business meeting regarding Pooh's contract, Pooh Big 30, his father Lontrell Williams Sr., and 7 others enticed Gucci Mane, his head of security, and another colleague to a recording studio. According to the indictment, the group ran unarmed, used an AK-style weapon to hold everyone at gunpoint, forced Gucci to sign a release from his 1017 contract, and stole jewelry, Rolex watches, and money from the studio that put on for Memphis. Early in April 2026, Pooh was picked up again. The 9 co-defendants are accused of federal conspiracy to commit armed robbery and kidnapping. Every charge has the capacity to be alive. He entered a not guilty plea. The bond was refused by the judge. The trial is scheduled for July 6, 2026. The fallout has been light. He was allegedly cut off in public by Gucci Mane. Every other day, old sayings about loyalty and not crossing the bridge are repeated on blogs. The foundation of the new Memphis trap appears to be in disarray, as does the relationship between the protege and the OG. The timing of Pooh's predicament is what hurts. FDO was making a chart. He was being repositioned as the future by the label. It's all gone after 3 months at home. He faces a term that may wipe out his entire prime if this kidnapping case is upheld. He enters a game that has previously buried him once if he defeats it. July 6, 2026. That date determines whether Pooh becomes a cautionary tale or one of the genre's most difficult comeback tales.
Rondò quando?
At last, the guy at the heart of every drill conflict approaches that gate. In August 2024, Tiquian Bowman admitted to conspiring to possess and distribute marijuana. The judge sentenced to 33 months in federal prison, a $400 fine, and 3 years of supervised release in December 2024. He has been at FCI Edgefield in South Carolina since turning himself in on January 10, 2025. The federal stretch isn't all that Quando is undertaking. He is the main player in the entire drill feud that resulted in Dirk being handcuffed. His name appears in every Dirk update. His name appears in every King Von tribute. Throughout the entire bid, he has been silently bearing that burden. When Dirk met with the $1 Million Boys, he personally handled the issue. Every night, Quando asks himself that question before going to bed. He was reading his daughter Italy's mail while skimming through the commissary from inside the feds. While the entire rap world continues to whirl, his career remains on hold. The calendar is Quando's blessing. His release was delayed by almost 5 months, from April 20th, 2027 to November 21st, 2026, due to good behavior and First Step Act credits. If nothing changes, he will be back on the streets in roughly 6 months. He had been sharing images and music from his incarceration and dropped SRT from the wall. The word is that he has put a lot of emphasis on his family, particularly his daughter, who has always been the center of his sound. When Quando goes out in late 2026, he enters a society that has been debating him for years. Some fans wish for him to disappear. Others consider him a survivor of an incident in which he was singled out for being in the wrong automobile on the wrong night. Regardless of your opinion, the music he releases during his first 6 months at home will be the most authentic he has ever created. Big 30. Memphis rides and falls together. From the day they first appeared, That has been the code between Pooh Shiesty and Big 30. As of right now, they are both facing the same indictment, charges, and possible life sentence. The federal indictment related to the alleged January 2026 Dallas studio incident with Gucci Mane names Big 30, whose true name is Rodney Lamont Wright Jr., along with Pooh and 7 other people. The charges include armed robbery and conspiracy to conduct kidnapping, both of which carry life sentences in prison. He entered a not guilty plea. He had been detained without bond in federal detention. Pooh's trial is scheduled for July 6, 2026. Calling him a flight risk and citing rumors of a 7-figure contract that arose during the early hearings, the feds went all out in court. Everything that the Big 30 has constructed over the past few years is about to be turned upside down by this case. Lil Durk, Future, Quavo, and Moneybagg Yo were among the artists featured on the 2021 release of King of Kill Branch. He was one of the next in line for Memphis. The co-signers were with him. Now he had the lane. Everything was frozen. Every performance was cancelled, was pushed back indefinitely by each studio session. Every collaboration is waiting for a jury on someone's hard drive. His circumstances intersected with Pooh's. Together, they emerged. Together, they charted. They may listen to the same at the same moment. The state portrays the alleged Dallas maneuver as a single, cohesive team, so if one of them enters a plea, the entire house of cards would fall apart. The defense of Big 30 has been arguing that there is less evidence linking him directly to the purported armed takeover than the prosecution has claimed in court. However, being thinner doesn't imply anything. Rappers are still sent home for decades by the federal government on charges with such serious, flimsy proof. July 6, 2026. On that day, Big 30 either returns to the studio or witnesses a federal sentence obliterate his prime. Memphis is observing. Nobody knows which way this thing tips yet, and the entire South is keeping an eye on it. The most divisive rapper in the game, 6ix9ine, just completed 90 days and left as if it had never happened. Once more, Daniel Hernandez, the same Tekashi 6ix9ine, was sentenced to 3 months in late 2025 for violations of supervised release, including drug possession and a mall attack. He was released by early April 2026 after turning himself in to MDC Brooklyn on January 6, 2026. Before entering, he sat down with DJ Vlad, and they had a direct talk. The Globe was curious as to whether rats could develop internal issues. All right. You will now be in for 90 days. Yes. He gave the same response that he had for years. Generally speaking, do people say things like, yo, Tekashi, big fan, or something similar when you're there, or does the cooperative atmosphere tend to keep people away? Tekashi claims that no one has approached him. No issues. No fades, nothing. In other words, I'm going to prison with the same mindset. I'm doing fine. He presented the entire infraction as a family-first action, claimed that his defense of his people was what led to his incarceration. The maximum exposure was 5 years, and the recommended sentence was 3 to 9 months. He received the lowest end, 3 months of in and out, return to Gram, return to Kick, and return to creating whatever circus the algorithm paid him for that particular week. He has drastically changed from music since he started living on the streets in April 2026. He had been streaming a lot. He even stated in interviews that he believes music has become stale for him at this point, and that streaming is the new bag. Depending on how long you've been watching the Tekashi Show, you might interpret that as part of the produced confusion or as the actual strategy. 6ix9ine completed several consecutive short bids at the age of 30. It's easy to see the pattern. Violate, beg, accept the bare minimum, return home, wreak havoc, and so on. The question that no one really wants to answer aloud is whether the game continues to pay for that act. Max B. The wave has returned. Max B returned to life after being absent for 17 years. In 2009, Charlie Wingate was first convicted of criminal murder, kidnapping, and armed robbery in connection with a 2006 Ford Lee, New Jersey heist that resulted in the death of an associate. 75 years of age. They attempted to execute the wave. He described how the entire section was removed from a behind-the-wall phone interview. He returned to post-conviction and began attacking the initial attorney. He accepted the agreement that put an end to the entire ordeal before the courts could decide on a complete overturn. The man claimed that it struck him differently when the judges granted him that daylight. After about 16 or 17 years, Max B returned to the streets on November 9, 2025. He returned to a different Harlem. He was scooped by French Montana, the same young brother he had mentored. The family was waiting. There was everyone who had never given up on him. He was in the booth within weeks after landing. There are upcoming projects and new music. The entire wave language he developed in the 2000s, the melodic yet street energy that affected everyone from French Montana to Wiz Khalifa to half of the current Atlanta sound, eventually brought its creator back into the spotlight. His vintage mixtapes are exploding once more. Children who weren't even alive when he first released Song are finding it in the public domain. Knowing what it took for him to truly survive, the OGs are re-examining the catalogue with fresh eyes. Max B isn't attempting to compete with the younger generation at the age of 47. He is merely attempting to remind everyone of the source of the sound. His name was meant to be buried for 17 years. Rather, it made him an unassailable legend. Lucci, YFN. The streets didn't anticipate the Atlanta homecoming this early. On January 31st, 2025, YFN Lucci, whose true name is Rayshawn Lamar Bennett, was released on parole following about 4 years of incarceration on RICO and gang-related charges in the Fulton County megacase. Strict limits, such as limitations on where he can reside and travel, apply to his document until 2031. One of the largest rap-adjacent RICO sweeps Atlanta has ever witnessed was ended by his plea deal. Lucci accepted the deal, completed his time, and arrived home sooner than anyone had anticipated while Young Thug and YSL were still engaged in a brawl. It was a moment when he returned to the A. Within days of landing, there will be studio sessions, family get-togethers, and a welcome home performance at State Farm Arena, according to reports. He released Already Legend, an album that focused on introspection, atonement, and the person he became after spending 4 years out of the public eye. Lucci is now a year into his freedom, which sets him apart from nearly everyone else on our list. He is experiencing it. He is filming. In 2026, he is pushing the boundaries of what a profession with parole restrictions can entail. He may be monitored at all times, but thus far, every move has been planned. His voice changed. The writing now has far more weight, yet the lyrical street energy of Atlanta that characterized the previous Lucci album is still present. Lines about his mother, his daughter, and the friends who did not survive the same case. That's the 2026 YFN Lucci. He was allowed to reside with his mother as part of his parole. He needs special clearance to leave the state. Until 2031, he will be regularly checked in. For a rapper who makes money from touring and collaborations, that is a weighty structure. However, Lucci is being astute by embracing the circumstances rather than publicly opposing them. His return isn't very loud. It's not a show that goes viral. It's a gentle rebuilding, brick by brick. After 4 years, YFN Lucci was rewritten rather than ended. To find out which version of him endures over time, the entire A is trapped in it. In this rap game, the following 12 months will be very different than the previous 12. Lock in and mark the dates. The ones that are already out here are just getting started, and the wave is returning. Stay tuned because there will always be more. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with the person you are most eager to see touch down.